Max Chambers, P.I., The Case of the Nazi Ghost. Prologue. Germany, April 11, 1945. On any other day, the beautiful German countryside would be perfect for a picnic. Lush green fields were dotted with thick, leafy shade trees. Something didn't smell right, though. Literally, it didn't smell right. There must have been a bombed-out horse stable upwind of the squad. It stank. Rotting carcasses were something that were a constant in the war. From Normandy to Paris, through Belgium and into Germany, scenic landscapes were dotted with craters of smoking ruin. Other landscapes were gone forever, laid waste to the destruction of the war. General George S. Patton's 89th Infantry Division was making its way across Europe, leaving its share of carnage in its wake. Old Blood and Guts wanted to get to Berlin ahead of the British General Bernard Monty Montgomery. The two men hated each other. Montgomery thought Patton was a glory hound. Patton thought Monty was overrated. Each man had a point. Patton had actually raced faster than his supply lines. His tanks had nearly run out of gas, and he now had to depend on foot patrols. Sergeant John Murray was leading one of these patrols through that beautiful German countryside. A seasoned veteran, Murray had seen action in North Africa, Italy, the D-Day invasion of Normandy, the Hurtgen Forest in Belgium, and the Battle of the Bulge. His squad was mostly made up of green kids, and he wanted to keep them safe. He took things slow, making precise and calculated moves. Most of the rookies didn't like it. They wanted to see action, kill Nazis, and go home a hero. A few were thankful for that slow approach. They were nervous and scared and just wanted to make it home, hero or not. Private Max Chambers was one who preferred Sergeant Murray. He was drafted along with his buddy Jimmy Kemp, and his fellow private wanted the glory. He usually volunteered to take point on patrols and was quick to fire his Thompson Tommy gun. Also in the squad were Privates Lou Frazier, Alvin Barry, Nick Rapowski, and John Santori. Corporal Tim Golding, a D-Day vet, was another steadying force. Suddenly, the peaceful day took a deadly turn. Shots rang out, and Corporal Golding fell dead, shot through the face. Everyone hit the deck, with Kemp spraying the field wildly. Sergeant Murray, spotting the source of the shots, called for grenades. Barry had the best arm and landed 3 in the heart of the nest. A white flag arose from the smoke, and a ceasefire was called. "Come out," Murray called. Max wasn't sure whether he'd said it in German or not. "Raus!" was what he said next. 2 soldiers emerged from the smoking nest. Kemp and Frazier stripped them of any weapons and dragged them over. They were kids. Max thought they must have been about 14 years old. One had pissed himself. They smelled like they must have been with horses, but much worse. Maybe the horses were dead and rotting, Max thought. He couldn't get over that smell. Sergeant Murray got them to give the locale of their camp, just over the hill. "Call into HQ and get some reinforcements up here," called Sergeant Murray. "Radio's toast," said Private Santori. "Took a hit." "All right, tie these 2 up and bring up the rear." "Yes, sir." "Don't call me sir, Santori," Murray said with a grin. The squad made their way down a dirt road and found the camp. 2 guard towers stood tall in the noon sun, but little else was evident. Huge metal gates blocked the entrance, but there were no guards. "Rapowski, get in the trees over there and take out the guard towers. Got your BAR?" "Got it." Rapowski was a little guy, but he carried his Browning automatic rifle as though it was a part of him. "Kemp, you take point. Barry, go left. Chambers, go right, and I'll take center. When Rapowski fires, we'll blow the gates with grenades. Lay down some smoke and take cover once you're in. Got it?" "We're waiting on you, Rapowski," said the sergeant. It all seemed to go like clockwork. The 2 guards in the towers dropped almost simultaneously. The gates blew open wide. Max, Barry, and Kemp made their way in. Rapowski, covering fire, and Santori blew open a blockhouse with a perfectly placed grenade. Sergeant Murray, on his belly at the gates, emptied his Thompson into the blockhouse. Shouts of "9! 9!" came from within, and a white flag was soon waving from a window. "Come out! Raus, you fuckers!" screamed Kemp. Slowly, a line of men and women streamed from the building. Max looked for Sergeant Murray, but found him still on his belly at the gates. "You hit, Sarge?" "Uh-huh," was all he could say. "Santori, get over here with a first aid kit!" Max screamed. Don't bother. You're in charge, Chambers, said the sergeant. In charge of what? I'm just a private. Take over. Do it like I did, like I showed you, Max, Sergeant Murray said thickly. Those were his last words. Max went to check his pulse, but stopped when he saw the sergeant's chest was ripped open. He held back a gag and stood, waving off Santori. Max motioned to the other blockhouse. It had been silent this whole time, but Max would take no chances now that it was his decisions on the line. With Kemp and Frazier guarding the prisoners, Max, Barry, and Santori prepared to open it up. It was just a thin door that Max kicked in, and with a deep breath he ran in, his comrades on either side. It was another deep breath that stopped him in his tracks. An unimaginable odor slapped his face, followed by a vision of skeletons. Walking skeletons. Checking his mates, he saw that they'd had stopped cold too. The building was filled with sobbing men, most too weak to stand. They were skin and bone, literally. He'd never seen anything like it. It seemed impossible that they were still alive. They wore rags or nothing at all. America! Americans! They were saying through the tears and moans. That stink that these two kids reeked of was this. Death, the walking death that was all around him. They were trying to lift him and his mates onto their shoulders, but were too weak to do so. Max pulled away and went into the courtyard. Breathe, he told himself. Breathe deep. Get your head back. What would the sergeant do now? Rapowski, are we secure? Yeah, Max, he said. Sergeant Murray? No, Max said, shaking his head. Put me in charge. Start getting these people out of that building. Tell Barry and Santori. Check. Jimmy, Max called out. Kemp came running over. I secured all the prisoners, he said. Sergeant's dead. He put me in charge. You? I'm on point every time and he puts you in charge? Don't give me any grief, man. This is all too much for us. Just then the bedraggled residents of the camp found the strength they'd lacked earlier. They returned the misery and torture that they had endured. They attacked the kneeling Germans. Shots rang out. When Max got there, he found that Frazier had given his sidearm to one of the men in rags. 2 guards lay dead. Take back that weapon, he shouted. Everyone stop! Max grabbed one of the Nazis. What goes on here? Who's your commandant? I am, said one of the Nazis as he stood. Who are all these people? They are only Jews. We've done the world a great service. You should be thanking me now, he said with a smug smile on his face. Max's hand tightened around the Nazi's throat. Thank you? You want me to thank you? Fuck you! With that, Max threw him to the waiting hands of the mob. They grabbed at him from every direction, beating at him, tearing at him. Nein, nein, he cried. Hilf me, mein Gott, hilf! They tore him to pieces. Max watched the spectacle until the German was dead. Kemp, Frazier, load these Nazis into one of those trucks and get them out of here. You know the way back to camp, Max said. As they walked past him to the truck, one of the Nazis spat at Max's feet. Jew lover. Max grabbed him by the throat and slapped him in the face. And again. He looked into the gray eyes of that Nazi and saw such evil and hatred. He slapped him again and was ready to throw him to the mob, but stopped himself. You're going to hang for this, and I'm going to watch. He pushed him into the truck. Women guards climbed in last. Max couldn't believe a woman could be part of this madness. As Max watched the truck drive off, his pal Jimmy Kemp gave him the dirtiest look. The second and third squads arrived. Great, Max thought. Another 20 or so troops to handle the crowd, and someone else to take charge, not just a lowly private. Maybe that'd make Jimmy feel a little better. Santori ran up. Max, it's Barry. What happened to him? Max asked. I don't know. Come see. Barry was on his knees, crying, sobbing uncontrollably like a grandmother, wailing. The Jews were trying to console him. Leave him alone, Max said. Leave him alone. Sergeant Millwood pulled Max aside. You know, I heard about shit like this, but I thought this was just a lot of bunk. HQ is sending food and medics. That was a smart move getting those krauts out of here. When did they leave? Max looked confused. You should have passed them on your way in. They left about 20 minutes before you got here, Sarge. An explosion came from over the hill. Rapowski, see what that was? Check. Santori, see if you can find a radio here and contact HQ. We need some help over here. There must be 1,000 people. All right, Max. We're outside of a town called Weimar. I don't know what they call this place. Hell, he said. You know, Chambers, said Millwood, you guys got the shit end of the stick today. What do you mean, Sarge? Well, this is somewhat of a sub-camp. These poor bastards took over the rest of the compound and killed most of the Nazis. Most of the Krauts deserted already. The people swarmed all around Max, crying and kissing his hands and his boots. He had no idea what to say. All he could think of was, it's okay. It's all over. Rest. Help will be here soon. Some of them had already died. Help would be too late for many of them. Rapowski ran up to him. It's the truck. They must have hit a mine. They're all dead. Everyone. Found the radio, Max, Santori said. They called this place Buchenwald. Max looked down and saw raindrops on his hands. The sun was shining. It wasn't raindrops. It was teardrops. Max's tears. This is Mike Cinelli. Thanks for listening to another chapter of Max Chambers' P.I., The Case of the Nazi Ghost. Stay tuned for more.